Welcome into Giants Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. As always, the playoffs are here and the Giants are in. Game this Sunday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be live on the channel. Make sure you subscribe. We have a loaded show today. We're going to break down Mike Kafka. Is he leaving the New York Football Giants to go be the head coach for the Carolina Panthers? There's some rumors about that. We'll talk about that. And could also the Giants' defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, be leaving to be a head coach? Ian Rapoport has been tweeting about that once again this offseason. We'll break down those rumors. We're also going to touch quickly on the Minnesota Vikings injury news because I think it's noteworthy with the Giants playing them, and some of their players that are hurt could drastically change the game plan for Big Blue. So we'll talk about that. Kafka, Wink Martindale injury news for the Vikings. But first, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Sub for playoff dubs. If you want the Giants to end the Minnesota Vikings season this Sunday, all you got to do is go down right now, hit that big red button. Because I'm not saying that if you don't sub, we're not going to win, but I'm not saying it. So if you want the Giants to beat the Vikings in the playoffs come this weekend, I want you to go down right now and hit that big red subscribe button. Let's start with the news of the day for Big Blue, and that surrounds Mike Kafka. The latest rumors are that the Carolina Panthers have requested to interview Mike Kafka to be their next head coach in the season of 2023. I thought they had a really good turnaround this year after they fired their head coach and brought Steve Wilks in. They did a really good job. They were competitive. I feel like that should be their head coach, but you got to have a search, and I think Mike Kafka is a guy that a lot of teams, whether it's this year or next year, will look at. Played in the NFL, turned around a Giants offense. We'll show you those stats in a second. He's a young guy. He's got new ideas, and he coached a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Losing Mike Kafka would absolutely suck. We'll show you why I believe that, and the stats show that. But this Giants offense is pretty much the same roster-wise as they were back in 2021 when Jason Garrett and Freddie Kitchens were calling the play after Garrett got canned midway through the season. But I think the biggest reason that this would suck is because this would be Daniel Jones's, obviously you'd have to replace Mike Kafka. That guy, offensive coordinator X, would be the fifth OC for Daniel Jones in his young NFL career. He's lacked stability on the offensive line. He's lacked stability at the wide receiver position, at the head coach position, and at offensive coordinator. And if the Giants were to lose Kafka to the Carolina Panthers or whatever team it might be, one of the 5 job openings, that would be a killer for Daniel Jones in this offense. Because what Kafka did when he came over and took over this Giants offense, I don't think we can say enough good things about it. Look at what the Giants were back in 2021 when Jason Garrett was their offensive coordinator. They were 31st in points per game, 31st in yards per game, 24th in rushing yards per game, 31st in passing yardage. But it's the last one that I think is the biggest indicator of the difference between Kafka and Garrett. Under Garrett, the Giants scored touchdowns just 44% of the time in the red zone, which ranks dead last in the National Football League. With Mike Kafka, with Daniel Jones, the same offensive line, worse weapons, they were 7th. They upped their percentage from 44.7 to 63.2% of the time they score touchdowns. That's the direct indicator of a good play caller and putting guys in position to succeed. They were 15th in points per game, up from 31st. 18th in yards per game, up from 31st. 4th in rushing yards per game, up from 24th, and up from 31st to 27th in passing yards per game. Mike Kafka has done an excellent job, and it would suck to see him go. So maybe this is, or maybe it's not. Some of the last games we get to see Mike Kafka as the offensive coordinator for the New York Football Giants. If it is, I want to show our guy some love. Type Kafka, his last name, in the comments section. If you don't want him to leave and you want him to stay with the Giants as their offensive coordinator, he wasn't perfect by any means, but I think he got the absolute most out of the talent that he had this year. Show him some love in the comments. Type Kafka because we need him back bad. We'll get to Wink Martindale and the Vikings injury news here in a second. But first, I want to give a big shout out to our proud sportsbook partner, BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Make sure you use that promo code chat125 for a 125% deposit bonus. Put $100 into your account, get 125 back. Bet on the Giants. They're dogs. They're going to beat the Vikings. Shout out to BetUS because we've got your game. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Promo code chat125. Let's touch on Wink Martindale because there was a tweet, we'll get to that from Ian Rapoport in a second, about Wink leaving to be a head coach. This is back in 2019. Notice who tweets all these out. Ian Rapoport says Don Wink Martindale is 2019 is emerging as a top candidate as the coaching carousel spins, and his top choice of OC is a fascinating one. Sources say Martindale would be paired with LSU Wonderkind Joe Brady, who set the field ablaze against Oklahoma. Then he tweeted a year later and said one name to consider when discussing head coach possibilities, Wink Martindale. He's considered to be one of the top candidates, and this season has only been bolstered that his staff targets include Clemson OC Tony Elliott and former head coaches Marvin Lewis and Lovie Smith. So we have a tweet in 2019, we have a tweet in 2020, and then prior to the 2021 season, he tweeted again about Wink Martindale. Urban Meyer praised the defense in D.C. Joe Cullen endlessly in our talk. As the Jaguars coaching cert kicks into gear, Ravens D.C. Don Wink Martindale figures to be a candidate in Jacksonville. He created that defense, which they could keep, but changes out the offense. Then he tweeted out back in 2022 and said, Wink Martindale would inherit a very talented defense and makes a lot of sense. When Mike Kafka tweeted the Giants made mistakes of taking Joe Judge over Wink Martindale 2 years ago, now a chance to correct. Then, just last week, he tweeted out after listening to Baldy, now stumping for Giants DC Wink Martindale. He's like Bruce Arians, but for defense. Took a 4-win team with a rebuilding roster, and now that they're top 5 in third down and red zone defense and are a playoff defense, one name to watch. Look, I think it's pretty funny that every single time there's a tweet about Don Wink Martindale becoming a head coach, it comes from Ian Rapoport. Did some deep diving. I couldn't confirm it, but I think Rapoport and Martindale had the same agent because it is just too funny that every single time Martindale gets head coaching buzz, it comes from Rapoport. But I do want to say this. This is what happens when you're a good football team. When you're well coached and you have a good staff, this is what happens. They want to take your offensive coordinator. They want to take your defensive coordinator. And the Giants are going through that for the first time in how long? When can we remember that our coordinators were being asked to be interviewed to be head coaches? It's been a long, long time. I think Martindale could be a head coach, but I think there's a reason that he hasn't been one yet. Maybe it's this offseason. I pray that it is not. I'd love to see Martindale back. He's turned this defense from being a soft and bend but don't break defense into the aggressors and putting the ball in their hands and trying to win. I thought last year the staff was good. I think this year the staff is absolutely great. I want to ask this question, then we'll get to the Vikings injury news. Who did a better job this year as the Giants coordinators? Offensive coordinator Mike Kafka, defensive coordinator Wink Martindale. Who did a better job this year, Giants fans? Sound off, type MK for Kafka, WM for Wink. Let me know in the comments section. With the game around the corner and the Giants playing the Vikings, I think it's at least important to look and know what's going on with their injury front. We know Adoree Jackson is going to be trying to get on the field this week. He was limited last week, limited the week before. I'm expecting him to play, but if you watch yesterday's episode, it's conflicting reports. I'd say he's questionable right now. But Dalvin Cook left the game last week versus the Bears with a knee injury, and according to Patrick Seatman, former Giants producer, now host of Vikings Today, or Vikings Now, if they win, I'll learn the name of that damn show, but they're irrelevant at this point. He says he should be ready to play versus the Giants. Definitely something to monitor. Cook is an explosive back, one of the most in the NFL. Not having him for the Vikings would be a blow. Still have Alexander Madison, but it sounds like he'll be good to go, just not 100%. I think the biggest injury to focus on for the Vikings is Garrett Bradbury. He hurt his back. He is their starting center. Hasn't played in a couple of weeks. Hurt his back in a minor car accident in December. Spoke last Thursday and said he's feeling better and is expected to be back at practice. If he does not go, that means you're going to have a backup center trying to block Dexter Lawrence. They already have a backup at the right tackle spot. The Giants' defensive line has to take advantage of a hurt Vikings O-line. That's just what it comes down to. 2007, why did the Giants win the Super Bowl besides Eli Manning being a GOAT? The defensive line was unstoppable. They could not be blocked. 2011, they couldn't be blocked there. Jason Pierre-Paul, that team was unbelievable. These four guys have the ability to wreck the game coming this Sunday against Minnesota. Kayvon Thibodeau, you've played great when you needed to boast. You played great against Washington. You played great against the Cowboys. When the lights are on, Kayvon Thibodeau plays his best. He was asked, Kayvon, do you like playing on primetime? He said, primetime likes me. You know when primetime football happens? In the playoffs, and that's when Kirk Cousins folds. We need Thibodeau to have a hell of a game. Dexter Lawrence, if he gets matched up against a backup center, I'm expecting sexy Dexy and a lot of dances to be going on. Leonard Williams, you never played in the playoffs. A lot of people don't think you're that good. I think you're one of the best in the NFL. Let's see you prove it this weekend because you're expected to make a lot of money on this team next year. And Azeez Ojulari, just keep being Azeez Ojulari, man. 5.5 sacks in 7 games played this year. He had 8 sacks as a rookie. I'm looking for these guys to make game-changing plays come this Sunday. Look, Giants want to win the football game. They can do that. Play turnover-free football, complimentary football, take advantage of being in the red zone, and hold the Vikings to field goals and have the front four change the game. Thibodeau, Ojulari, Lawrence, Williams, this game's on you. Go win the football game. Make sure you also give me a follow on Twitter @MarshallGreen_.